Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our discussion on how to manage your staging projects in Design Manager. My name is Brad, and I'll be hosting the demonstration today. If you have questions during the webinar, feel free to enter them into the questions pane under GoToWebinar panel. If the question is outside of the scope of today's discussion, please email them to support@designmanager.com. And lastly, if you miss a portion of the webinar or want to review any of our past discussions, go to our YouTube channel at Design Manager Inc., Design Manager INC, for a complete listing of all sorts of topics, including quick start videos, short helpful tutorials, and more comprehensive webinars, like today's presentation, including project management courses, accounting courses, and then there's a listing of all of our weekly webinars as well. Okay, let's get started. Properly managing the logistics and finances of your staging jobs is actually quite simple in Design Manager. Briefly, you'll be creating two projects, one to manage the selection and delivery of the merchandise itself, and a second for all the finances of the project, including deposits, expenses, invoicing the client, payments, etc. In our experience, there are really two main types of firms that offer staging services. One that have their own accessible inventory, and ones that lease the merchandise from such companies and return the goods at the end of the project. I'll demonstrate both such situations as they're actually quite similar. Let's begin with the scenario that our company is providing the inventory. Now, I've already gone and created the two necessary projects for our Brassington client. So let's go to our project window, and we'll focus on our Brassington projects. And there they are. Now, I've used the project names of Brassington Staging Management and Brassington Staging Finances to differentiate between the two, but you can use any terminology that you see fit. I would just suggest to do so using consistent nomenclature throughout your company for consistency. Let's begin with the Brassington Finances project first. So it's already highlighted. I'm just going to hit my items button, which, as most of you know, jumps us right to our specifications window. And as you can see, I have no items created yet. Remember, we're going to be processing all of our accounting through this project. And as such, we might want to actually create a proposal for our services and perhaps even ask for a deposit or retainer, though this step is not certainly not required. We can make a very simple singular item for our staging services, and let's do so. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Add button in the bottom left, which brings us to our item window. Client description, staging services for Brassington residents. And of course, you could add much more detail, what rooms, etc., that you see fit in there. Location, let's do throughout. Is just fine. The quantity and unit of measure, completely unnecessary, though you could put something in there that you find applicable if desired. And the same goes for the budgeting. Traditionally, you wouldn't be budgeting on a per item basis. The sales category, let's jump to our staging services sales category. And if we take a peek at that, you can see that all of my revenue accounts are set for my staging services, except for design time or billable time, which would be different. Now, I could just simply input the price I'm going to be charging Ms. Brassington for the staging right into my total estimated price. Let's say it's an even $15,000. And if I did require a deposit, I could input that as well, or just let Design Manager calculate it for me. But let's say we want to do an even $5,000. And the cost in this case really means nothing. This is going to be the services themselves that we're going to be billing to Ms. Brassington. And if we click OK, there we have our staging services item ready for making our proposal if necessary. And if that's part of our business model to do so, let me show you how we would do it. From here, we jump over to our proposals window off of our documents frame, put in our Brassington Finances project, And as you can see, we have no proposals created. We have just one option to add or create a new one. And now we're on our new proposal window. And the name, of course, defaults to the name of the project, which is Brassington Staging Finances. I might just change that to Brassington Staging. I'll be leaving the dates all set to today's date. You would, of course, change that as necessary. I prefer the modern format of our proposal, but you could choose, of course, the residential, which has a more perhaps personal correspondence feel. The commercial has your sort of classic columns, almost like a purchase order. But I'm going to go ahead and use the modern format. Pictures don't really matter in this case, as we don't have any pictures for the services themselves. So all we have to do is tag or select our item. And upon doing so, notice that our totals recalculate in the bottom left corner. In Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia specifically for the Brassington residents, all goods and services are taxable, so that's being displayed for me, creating a total estimated amount of the proposal, and there's our $5,000 deposit being shown as well. If we click OK, Design Manager will generate a preview of the proposal for our review, and there it is. And as I said, here's the modern format. Very simple. We have our location of throughout, basically throughout the residence. There's our description, the amount, our sales tax, and there, even conveniently listed in bold, is the deposit that we're requesting at this point. To approve or process the proposal, I simply close the print preview button window and click the accept button. And there we go. And there is our proposal now listed on our proposals and documents window. Obviously, I went through that process quite quickly, and there's a lot more sophistication to the proposal window and the process itself. For much more in-depth discussion, be sure to check out our Project Management Course 1, Proposals, where I go into an in-depth description of all of these topics, plus a whole lot more. Okay. Now, we just told Ms. Brassington that we expect a $5,000 deposit to begin the staging services. So let's imagine that we send our proposal off. She accepts our terms and go ahead and process the check for us. To record that check, we then jump off of our project tab, move over to our accounting area, and under our accounts receivable frame, we can see our cash receipt button. Any funds coming in from the client always go through the client cash receipt window, which is accessible by clicking the add button in the bottom left corner. From here, we just put in the appropriate project. There's our staging finances project. The amount, let's say she gave us exactly our $5,000. Again, I'm going to just leave the date set to today's date, but of course you could change that to the date of the check or the date the check was received, etc. Payment type was a check. Input that check number. And now all we have to do is go ahead and select our proposal, which already comes up as being defaulted to requesting or expecting a $5,000 payment. And when I tag it, my deposit is then listed in the totals in the bottom left corner, which matches my receipt perfectly. And I have a difference of 0, so I can go ahead and process. Now, let's say, however, though, that your firm doesn't make a proposal for our staging services. You may have a boilerplate contract that you actually give to the client, and they simply remit the funds as necessary. Well, if you don't have a proposal and there's some initial funds coming in, you would simply record those as a retainer rather than a deposit on our proposal. To do that, very similar. Just click your add button again, put in the project. Again, let's say it was $5,000. Ms. Brassington paid via check. And now, rather than selecting our proposal line for our deposit, we would highlight our retainer line. There's always one line on our deposits and retainer grid just for retainers. And click the edit button as indicated by the pencil to input the amount. You always have to manually input a retainer, as there's no way Design Manager could assume any value for it. $5,000, initial staging deposit retainer. And there we go. And I would simply go ahead and post the retainer as opposed to the deposit itself. So you can handle the initial funds either way. Design Manager will handle it perfectly for you. Now I'm just going to go ahead and delete that retainer as we'll process our funds as a deposit on the proposal. Go ahead and click our Post button. Design Manager always warns you when you're going to process any fiscal activity in the program. And we go ahead and actually record and process that $5,000 check from this Brassington. In fact, we could even see that if we go back to our proposal window. And now here's our staging proposal, and we can see even that we've received that deposit and even conveniently the client's check number and check date as well. For much more discussion on deposits and retainers in Design Manager, please view our Accounting Courses 1, Client Deposits and Retainers webinar. Again, I go into great detail on the processes and functionality of both of those transactions at that point. Okay. All right, so those are two ways to handle prepayments from your client, which will ultimately be used against the final invoice. But many design firms that offer staging services also require a security deposit for the merchandise being staged. This can be handled in one of two ways. First, you can record the security deposit as a retainer for the client, just as I demonstrated. Doing so will appropriately categorize the funds as a liability on your balance sheet, as hopefully you'll be returning the money to the client at the end of the project. Having the security deposit recorded as a retainer has one major benefit in that we can use the extremely convenient client returns and credits window to easily refund or return the deposit, as we'll see in just a little bit. So let's go ahead and imagine that we are requesting a, $1,500 security deposit as well. So back to our accounting and cash receipts. All funds coming into Design Manager always go through the same convenient and consistent window of our cash receipts. Since it is a client-based transaction, we'll go ahead and click the Add button to get to our client cash receipt window. And again, we'll put in our finances project. $1,500. Again, I'll just use today's date, check, different check number. And as it is a retainer, I have to input the amount explicitly. So I'll click our Edit button, type in our 1,500, Brassington security deposit. By clicking OK, I've got my retainer already tagged for us. It matches the receipt perfectly. And I can go ahead and post the security deposit as a retainer. Now, let's take a look at one of our reports to analyze our deposits and retainers. Under our project reports, we see our deposit analysis report. Very handy report for monitoring any deposits, retainers, and the application thereof on your invoices. So I would add that to my favorites so I can easily find it and track it down as needed. So let's run that for our finances project. And here we can very clearly see, here's our security deposit recorded as a retainer. Notice that my transaction description, very important in these cases, tells me exactly what those funds are for. And here is our $5,000 deposit on our staging proposal as well. Clearly indicated, very easy to read and understand, and be able to track these funds as we'll see throughout the project. Now, the only potential drawback in this procedure is that the security deposit is going to be included with your other natural client deposits for staging and other design services. Basically, it's all processing through our singular client deposit liability account. Now, if you or your accounting professional would rather have security deposit funds recorded in a different account, That can be done as well, though the process is a bit different. So let me expand upon that a little bit. First, we would obviously need an account to handle those funds. So if we go to our accounting tab again, move down to our general ledger frame and click our accounts button, we can see I've created a client security deposit liability account. Now, the account's going to be a liability as the monies don't technically belong to our company. We're simply holding them until the completion of the staging project, where hopefully they'll be returned in full to the client, provided there's been no damage to the goods. And there is our very simple client security deposit account. Unlike our traditional client deposit account, we can't use the client cash receipt window to enter the funds directly into the security deposit account. Rather, we need to record the money using the miscellaneous cash receipt window, though it is very similar. We go back to our accounting, back to cash receipts. Again, all funds going into your company go through cash receipt window, but rather than clicking the add button, we'll simply click the add MISC or add miscellaneous button instead. And again, let's imagine that it was a check. I think we use check 5036. Transaction description, Brassington security deposit. We'll use that for the name as well. The amount was an even 1,000. And we'll use our client security deposit liability account number 24,000. And notice there's no way on the miscellaneous cash receipt window to associate it with a particular project. So it is very important that you use your transaction descriptions and the receipt name to help you identify the funds themselves. If we go ahead and click OK, now we can see our receipt ready for posting, and we'll be actually entering it into that client security deposit liability account upon posting. Go ahead, and now if we look at our account inquiry report under our general ledger reports, there's our account inquiry. I'll add that to our favorites as well. Let's take a look at the activity in our 24,000 client security deposit account. And there it is. And we can see our miscellaneous cash receipt is putting those funds directly into our account, and we can see by our transaction description that it is for the Brassington project. You could use the project code, whatever type of terminology or verbiage that's going to help you identify what that transaction is for. Okay, now that we've discussed some of the initial financing for our staging project, let's move over to selecting the merchandise, managing delivery, all of those types of activities. And to do so, we'll go back to our project tab, go to our project specifications, and now we'll be focusing on the actually staging management project rather than the finances project. And as you can see, I've already added a few items from our inventory. To do so, as many of you I'm sure know, if we want to add some more items from inventory, we click the inventory button. On the add item from inventory window, we could type in our stock number, or we could simply search. Let's get some accessories here. How about this mirror? Go ahead and click OK. And just like that, I'm adding an item into inventory. If we take a look at it, I could put that into the master bedroom with the other items. And we can even see we do have our cost and pricing being listed here. Now, that could absolutely be the case. I may actually sell this merchandise to clients. in the future, or it's a showroom item that a client could come in and certainly purchase. So it's absolutely fine if the pricing is in the item and you may desire to do so. You could remove it if you wanted to, but it really will make no difference, as we'll see momentarily. And I could add as many items as I need. Let's go ahead and add another one just for our demonstration. How about this side table? And we could put that into the bedroom hall, perhaps. There we go. And so on and so forth. Now, we can actually go and create a proposal to showcase our staging concepts once we've entered in all of our specifications. To do so, we'll go to our proposal tab, our proposal button, pardon me. And now we'll select our staging management project instead. Just like we made a proposal for our services themselves, we can go ahead and showcase all of the items we've selected for Ms. Brassington. Just like we did before, we'll click our Add button, and we'll go ahead and select all of our items. Though we do, recall, we see all of our pricing in there. Well, that's pricing for the purchase of this merchandise. But we can use our brand new modern no pricing format that's going to simply not display any of that information. Go ahead and change our name to perhaps Brassington Merchandise. We'll leave today's date, that's just fine. And we can go ahead and click OK. And notice in this format of the modern version, we have all of the items being listed within their particular locations, bedroom, hallway, master bedroom, and we're just simply displaying all of the products or the merchandise that we're going to be used in our staging project without any of that pricing. And we can go ahead and click OK and accept our presentation or our showcasing proposal of all of the goods that we're going to be staging. Now, another great feature in Design Manager Professional Cloud is the ability to make delivery tickets to assist in the coordination and tracking of the merchandise to and even from the site itself. To make a delivery ticket, we stay on our Project Management tab under our Documents frame, and now we're going to click our Project Delivery Tickets button, which gets us to our delivery ticket window. Again, since we're handling all of the management of the staging at this point, we'll put in the Brassington Staging Management Project so we can create a delivery ticket. Click our Add button, very similar in functionality to the proposal window. And here on our new delivery ticket window, again, we see all of our items listed for us. I'll use today's date, which is just fine. Of course, with a delivery, you may want to schedule that into the future, and you absolutely could do so. You could choose whether or not to include the pictures. We might as well. That helps our delivery team know exactly what we'll be taking with us. I'm going to use the option of using the client's site address. We want all of the merchandise to be taken right over to Ms. Brassington's residence. On our new delivery ticket window, we can see the location, the reference number, the description of the goods, the quantity and unit of measure. That's the original quantity. Then we have quantities for what's been delivered in the past, what's been shipped in the past, and what we're delivering on this ticket. And I'll go into detail on those quantities in just a moment. I'll go ahead and use our Tag All option to have Design Manager automatically select all of the items for us. And let's take a look at our delivery ticket by clicking the OK button to get to our delivery ticket print preview window. And here it is. We can see we're shipping right to Ms. Brassington's apartment residence. And within the body of the delivery ticket, we see the location, which is very convenient, of course, the description of the item, a picture, which makes our delivery team happy, how the unit, the quantity and unit of the merchandise, what's going to be delivered at this point, and notice the quantity shipped is left blank. That's intended for the delivery team to actually fill in what was truly shipped or deposited at the site itself, in case something had to come back for damage, or there's some types of rejection upon those who are receiving the goods, etc. That could be denoted as well. And then we see all of the other goods all the way through our delivery ticket, and there's even a space at the bottom of the document for someone at Ms. Brassington's site to actually sign that they've received the goods themselves, if that's required. And we'll go ahead and close and accept our delivery ticket to process it. Now, we can even set the shipped quantities as well. So the delivery team comes back with our delivery ticket, and if some of the merchandise was not actually taken to the residence, that can be input as well. And to do so, just click the edit button, and we can highlight each item and simply input the shipped quantity to indicate that not only was it attempted to be delivered, it was in fact shipped to the residence. If you have a large delivery ticket, it may actually be easier to set the shipped quantities for all of the items and just change the ones that did not actually get taken to the site. In that case, when you're adding the delivery ticket, just click the set shipped quantity option, and then Design Manager will set the shipped quantity to the delivered quantity, and you can just edit the delivery ticket to indicate the unfortunate circumstance where a piece did not actually make it to the residence. All of that is being tracked throughout Design Manager. You can actually see that under the project specifications. On our status tab, we can see along the bottom the delivery ticket number, the date, what was actually attempted to be delivered, and what was truly shipped as well. You can even create a delivery ticket when the good is becoming returned from the site. To do that, you can click your Add button, change the Use Site address to allow you to input a designated ship to address. In this case, we'd be bringing it right back to our company itself. And then we could go ahead and process a second delivery ticket. Now we're taking the goods back to our company location itself. Another way to track or reflect upon or manage the delivery information besides the item window itself is another report under our project management reports. Order tracking, we have a report just for delivery and shipping. So if we take a look at our Brassington management project, I could show our various items in a wide variety of different scenarios. I could see everything that's going to be delivered, but it's been not shipped, that's not yet delivered, that has been delivered and shipped, etc. And here we can see I'm showing our 3 pieces in the bedroom and our piece in the hallway that were delivered, but I hadn't yet set the shipped quantity as well. So you can use your delivery and shipping report to really keep abreast and manage the actual transport of all of the merchandise as well. Now, your company may be handling multiple staging projects simultaneously. So you or your warehouse team can monitor what inventory items are currently being staged or selected for staging using the committed analysis report under inventory reports. Let's take a look at that report. And I'll print it just for our Brassington project as an example. And notice on the committed analysis report, we could run this for all of our projects and very easily see what inventory items are committed to which projects. And there they are, along with all the costs of those, the value of those goods as well. Now, I touched upon many inventory related topics. So for a much more in-depth presentation, be sure to check out our Inventory Pro Cloud webinar as well. Okay. Now, let's imagine that our staging project has been completed, the merchandise returned, and now it's time to finalize some of the accounting and some of the housekeeping aspects of the project management itself. First, let's go ahead and create a final invoice for Miss Brassington. That would get us back on our accounting tab, and we can see our first option is our client invoice button. We're going to go ahead and click the add invoice button in the bottom left, and we'll put in our finances project again. Let's just use today's date again, that's absolutely fine. Transaction description, Brassington staging. Transaction description on the invoice is for internal use only. That won't appear on the invoice itself. I'll go ahead and select or tag our staging services item, and we can see along the bottom we have the price of the services. There's our tax. It's according to PA rules. Notice our deposits automatically being applied for us, yielding a balance due of $11,200. Click OK. And now we can actually print and process the invoice itself. I'll stick to our modern format. And there we go. We can see our services fee, the sales tax, the total, the application of our deposit, and the current balance due for Ms. Brassington. And accept. And there's our invoice. Now, obviously, there's much more information on invoicing process than what I just demonstrated. So again, be sure to check out our accounting course too, client invoices and billing reports, for a far greater explanation on all the concepts related to invoicing your client. Now, at this point, we can just send the invoice off to Ms. Brassington and await final payment, which would effectively conclude our dealings with the client. But there's still a few more details to which to attend. What about that security deposit? Well, we need to return that to Ms. Brassington. And as I stated earlier, since we recorded it as the retainer, we can use the client returns and credits window to easily do so. To return that deposit, we go to our accounts receivable frame under our accounting tab and click the returns and credits button. And all we have to do on the client returns and credits window is simply tell Design Manager what we're attempting to do, starting with which project. Well, that's our Brassington finances. The refund type, let's write a check to the client. We're going to refund for a retainer. Upon clicking the retainer option, notice many things happen. The window gets recalibrated or regenerated to just show us the available retainer, and we can enter in the refund amount. In best case scenario, we'll be refunding the entire amount, but of course you could reduce that to denote any damages, etc., if that does unfortunately occur. The date of the refund, the fiscal period, transaction description defaults to credit memo, but I could change that to return security deposit. Our total refund is conveniently shown in red along the bottom right corner, and simply by clicking OK, Design Manager will process that refund for us. And now we're asked, hey, we've already processed the refund. Would you like to go see where we can print a check for that? Sure. By clicking yes, Design Manager jumps us right to our Payments and Print Checks window. And right up top, we can see our entry for our deposit to refund listed for us. And then we could go ahead and actually process a check if desired. Now, if we look back on our deposit analysis report for our Brassington finances, let's see what new entries are available to be displayed. We can see here is our security deposit coming in, and this is us refunding it as we just processed through our client's returns and credits window. There's our original deposit. And now we have an entry for our invoice where we're actually utilizing or applying that deposit as well. So by having all of our financial activity in that one singular project, we really have a nice linear display of all of the various financial activity, particularly regarding funds coming in and being applied to invoices, etc. What about the other security deposit that I recorded into the security deposit liability account? Well, we can create a refund check for that as well, but the process is a bit less automated. Here's how to do so. In that case, we go to our accounting tab and go to our Bills and Invoices button on our accounts payable frame. On our vendor deposit invoices and operating expenses window, we click the Add button, and we're going to enter a expense. The vendor or payee in this case would be Ms. Brassington. Now notice, I've already created a one-time or single-use vendor as indicated by the superscript and the number 0001. That got created automatically through the returns and credits process that we just did for the security deposit as a retainer. If that wasn't an option, you could add a one-time vendor or payee just by clicking the one-time button and filling out all the information. And you can see we're creating a little unique one-time code for you. Invoice number will be something along the lines of return security deposit. Today's date is just fine. Transaction description as well. Perhaps maybe we say return Brassington deposit. Now we'll click the Add button to add our amount and account distribution. And in this case, very importantly, the account we're going to use would be our client security and deposit account. In other words, we're going to be taking the funds out of that account to return to Ms. Brassington. And I think I used 1,000 in this example. Now all we have to do is click OK and actually post or process that expense. And when we do so, back on our payments and checks window, we can see another entry, and there is our refund of the security deposit. When again, I could go ahead and process a check back to Ms. Brassington. And if we head back to our account inquiry report and take a look at our security deposit account, we can see our original deposit going in or increasing the value, and then the return of the Brassington deposit, bringing that balance back down to zero. So a very handy report to track all of those transactions as well if we want to maintain our security deposits in a separate liability account. Now, speaking of expenses, I've been demonstrating under the assumption that our internal team member or delivery team is going to be doing the shipping and installation, etc. But what if that's not the case? What if we hire a third-party delivery company to handle those duties? Well, they're certainly going to want payment at some point. In that scenario, we would go back to our our bills and invoices button along our accounts payable frame to get to our vendor invoices window. Just as we did for the security deposit, we would add, and this would be another expense. Let's say we have a shipping company that handles all of the delivery and installation for us. They send us an invoice date, transaction description, Brassington delivery install. And now, by clicking our add button to get our account distribution, conveniently, I already have my installation delivery cost of goods sold account appearing for us, because if I look at my vendor window for our delivery team, on the defaults tab, I've associated the expense account, or in this case, the cost of goods sold account, with the vendor. So I don't need to remember it. Design Manager will automatically default it conveniently for me. And let's say they charged us, oh, I don't know, $12.50 to do so. Click OK, and we're ready to go. Now, if I went and processed and posted this expense, the cost of the delivery would go directly into our installation delivery cost of goods sold account, basically as an overall company expense. But what if I wanted to track our job costing with a greater degree of detail, and I wanted to associate this delivery charge directly with our Brassington project? Well, I could do that as well. So rather than using the non-project or company-wide expense, in that case, I'd use the project-related option, and notice that the window again reconfigures. Here I would select our sales category. I have one for installation, and if we examine that quickly, we can see that all of my cost of goods are going to that exact same 59,100 installation delivery cost of goods account. I have our amount still. I put in our Brassington finances project. Design Manager then asks me if I'd like to update my markup, etc. There's no need. I'm not going to be marking up the charge at all, though I could if desired. I'm going to create a new item within the staging finances project. I could use the location of throughout again. I could leave it set to merchandise. I could set it to freight, what have you. Absolutely doesn't matter, because all of my installation accounts are set to the same cost of goods sold account. But I'll change it to install labor just for consistency. I can see the cost to the client, and I can even enter in a description for both my information and perhaps the client's if necessary. Delivery for Brassington staging. Now, if I don't intend to actually invoice Ms. Brassington for this delivery charge, if that cost is already embedded in my own fee and I'm never going to invoice this, I want to use the option of bypass WIP, bypass work in process. This will put that $1,250 cost directly into our installation delivery cost of goods sold account. Now, if that is further, if that is how your company handles all of your staging, and you will never invoice the client for individual charges for delivery, you can actually configure the project at the onset. If we go back to our projects window, edit the Brassington finances project on the defaults. Go to advanced markup. There's an option for bypass work in process. If I select it on the project, Design Manager would always push that cost directly into cost of goods sold rather than processing it through your work in process account. Now, if the concept of work in process is new to you or unfamiliar, be sure to check out our work in process webinar, as that's a fundamental accounting concept in the design accounting model. Okay, now we can go ahead and click OK, and I'm going to post or process our expense. And upon doing so, back in our projects for the finances, we can see there is my delivery staging item. Well, where is our item for our services? That has simply proceeded on to the completed stage as it's been invoiced in full. But what we're doing is we're keeping our item for our revenue or our fees for our services. We're also accumulating all of our expenses into one singular project. And if we look at a report such as our project profit and loss, another handy one to attach to our favorites, we can see just by looking at our profit and loss for the Brassington finances, there's our revenue. Here are our cost of goods sold, or if you categorize them as an expense, you could do so as well for the delivery itself, yielding our net income. So we're encapsulating all the financial activity into that singular project. And again, in fact, if it was my business model to not to simply charge my design staging fees as the staging services and then charge the individual delivery charges, I could absolutely do that as well and simply make an invoice for our to pass on the cost of the delivery team's work. Another scenario where I might need to invoice for something other than the staging services. Well, what happens if the client wants to keep some of our merchandise? Well, that's easy as well. Let's jump over to our management project, and let's imagine that the client wants to keep the nightstand as an example. I can simply jump to my tree view, and I'm going to copy the nightstand, and I'm going to then switch over to our finances project and paste it right in. And there we can see it. Now I've got a copy of the nightstand over into the particular project, and I can go to our invoicing for our finances, and there it is. There's our delivery and our nightstand as well. So very simple if the client does want to keep some of the merchandise, which is certainly not an uncommon scenario. Okay, now the last step. We need to return the merchandise to inventory from our staging project, and we can do so in a few ways. Back on our specifications for our management project, I can simply edit the item, go on the component, and click the uncommit inventory option. By saving the item, notice it's no longer indicated from inventory. And if we look at our inventory window, there's our queen bed. I have none indicated as committed. And we can even see, here's where I committed it to the original project, and there is us removing it via the uncommit function. Now, very simple, I could do that for each of the items. There is a more automated way as well. This method preserves the exact merchandise that was originally staged for Ms. Brassington. But if I don't want to keep a record of that, or it's not important to me, or I already have my original proposal, etc., saved and stored, I could simply delete each of the items out of the project, which automatically commits it back into inventory. Or in even a grander scale, I could go ahead and simply delete the entire project itself, which again uncommits all the inventory as well. And that would conclude all the inventory processing of it. Now, finally, I mentioned the scenario where your company may not maintain a complete inventory for staging. And you go out and actually lease the merchandise from a third-party company that does have inventory used in those scenarios. In the most part, the process is the exact same, except you may actually want to make a purchase order or an order to the company that's going to provide you the merchandise. So I've created some projects to handle or display that scenario. So let's go to our specifications, and I'll take a look at our, oops, not our Brassington. Let's go to our Milne staging management. And here I have two very simple examples of products that I want to lease from our third-party furniture outlet, classic furniture outlet company, for the staging of the client's wine cellar. In this case, let's take a look at our chairs here. The cost would be exactly what the company is charging us on a per item basis, if they do so. They may give you a single lease amount as well, which we can process, and we'll see that momentarily. So the cost wouldn't be the value of the good itself, it's what they're charging you to actually to lease it out for the desired amount of time. In that case, we might want to make an order or a purchase order to procure those goods. So all we have to do is input the specifications that we want into our management project, and then we can go to our purchase orders, select our management project, and create a PO. Now in this case, we'll be ordering them from the vendor, and I'm going to be shipping it. I can ship it right to the client site. I may change that and ship it right to my company. That's entirely up to how my business model practices are. And I can go ahead and send off an order to the classic furniture outlet to receive those goods. Just another step in the management aspect of the project. Now, of course, there's more information about making purchase orders under our Purchase Order Management Course 2, part of Project Management Course 2, Purchase Orders and Work Orders. At this point, everything is the exact same. I'll use my finance project to make my item for the services to invoice the client, and rather than processing the bills from the vendor as the vendor invoice on the purchase order, just do the exact same way and make an operating expense as I displayed with the inventory project as well. And if we do so, take a look. If the bill came in from our leasing company, they would have an invoice number, invoice date. So today's date again is just fine. Leasing merch for our project. Select our account and put in exactly how much they're charging us to do so. And again, we could change that to use it right to our project itself with our staging services, and we could attach that to our finances project. Oops. Leasing for staging merchandise. Bypass our work in process and go ahead and post. And again, we can now see that in our finances project as well. So that process is the exact same. Only difference is we may want to make a purchase order in that case. And with that, that brings us to the end of our discussion on managing your staging projects in Design Manager. I hope to provide the overall framework of how to create and manage both the procurement and delivery of the merchandise, along with efficiently handling the finances associated with just enough detail so you can do the same. I hope to provide you the resources for a variety of the other topics that we touched upon as well. And with that, I thank you all for joining the discussion today, and I hope you attend another of our free webinars in the near future. Take care and have a great day.